Under the previous order, leadership time is reserved. Morning business is closed. Under the previous order, the Senate will resume consideration of S. 2296, which the clerk will report.
Calendar number 115, S2296, a bill to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2026 for military activities of the Department of Defense and so forth and for other purposes.
Mr. President,
Senator from Iowa.
there's a not so perfect storm brewing for farmers in my state of Iowa and in agricultural states generally. Many factors are coming together and all at once, like low grain prices, high input costs, consolidation in the industry, and uncertainty from trade and tariffs. It's beginning to look more and more like the 1980s to me. One thing that concerns me is the lowering of land values in Iowa. Land value has gone down 3% since last year and down 5.4% since the same time in 2023. That's not as bad as it was in the 1980s. It was a very catastrophic drop in prices compared to what I just quoted you for now. And in the 1980s, that didn't happen overnight. It kind of crept up on us very slowly. And we don't want to let that happen again. So we need to be vigilant today. When it comes to land prices, as you know, if farmers lose too much land value, they won't be able to leverage against it for debt to cover their expenses. That happened in the 1980s. And as I said, it kind of crept up on us at that particular time. And Congress didn't see it coming soon enough. Congress waited too long to act. Farmers have been pleading with Congress for the last 2 or 3 years Congress had been pleading in the 1980s, pleading with Congress for 2 to 3 years before Congress was able to pass some help for the farmers. In the meantime, farmers went bankrupt, and a lot of farmers were lost due to suicide. Now that may sound everyday business, but if you've been operating a family farm and you were the 5th or 6th generation doing that, and you lost it because of bankruptcy, low prices, land values going down, you become depressed and ashamed, and I'm sure that's why a lot of people committed suicide. Now we have a farm safety net in place. We have tried to be on top of farmers' mental health to a greater extent than in the past. So hopefully all these bad things that happened in the 1980s won't happen again. But I'm here saying I don't want to see it happen again. But we can't be complacent knowing the history of Congress being too slow to act. So Congress ought to act now before it's too late. I yield the floor. I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsop-Brooks.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be suspended.
Without objection.
Mr. President, we're now in day 6 of the Democrats' government shutdown. Day 6. And I'm wondering just what exactly Democrats think they're gaining from all of this. I guess they're getting points from the far-left interest groups that they've been coordinating their shutdown strategy with. But I highly doubt that they're earning a lot of points with everyday, hardworking Americans, like the voters that they lost in the last election. Mr. President, a Reuters headline from Thursday noted, and I quote, U.S. government shutdown threatens food aid program for low-income Americans. Let me just read that again, Mr. President. U.S. government shutdown threatens food aid program for low-income Americans. The article noted that while the Trump Agriculture Department is doing its best to continue administering the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, more commonly known as WIC, the program is, quote, critically low on funds. And it won't get new funds until Democrats agree to reopen the government. Mr. President, Democrats own this. They own any lapse in funding for critical food aid programs, just as they own every other negative effect of the shutdown. Because let's remember, Mr. President, the only reason the government is shut down is because Democrats refuse to accept a clean, nonpartisan funding extension. A clean, nonpartisan funding extension. We didn't ask Democrats to swallow any new Republican policies. We didn't ask them to swallow any partisan riders. We simply asked them to agree to a clean, nonpartisan bill. The same kind of bill, Mr. President, I might add, that they voted for 13 times. 13 times during the Biden administration. The Democrats said no. And I should note, Mr. President, that you don't have to take my word for it on the facts of the bill. Republicans aren't the only ones pointing out that this is a clean CR. Here's what the president of the Teamsters Union had to say the other day, and I quote, "A shutdown will hurt working people, period. Senators should pass the House-passed clean, short-term funding bill," end quote. Senators should pass the House-passed clean, short-term funding bill, end quote. Again, that from the president of the Teamsters Union. Or, you could take the word of a mainstream journalist who recently noted, and I quote, "In a vacuum, this CR would get almost every Democrat vote." It just would. This is a clean CR that has no partisan riders, extends a bunch of programs that are Democrat priorities. It's clean. It's clean, Mr. President. So to summarize, Democrats have shut down the government because they refuse to accept a clean, nonpartisan bill. And why are they refusing to accept it? After all, as I mentioned, they supported similar bills 13 times during the Biden administration. The reason that they refuse to accept it is that Democrats still cannot get over the fact that the American people elected President Trump. And when their far-left base demanded a showdown with the president, Democrats fell in line. And now it's the American people who are suffering the consequences. I quote again, U.S. government shutdown threatens food aid program for low-income Americans. Threatens food aid program for low-income Americans. Mr. President, 3 Democrats have rejected their party's shutdown politics and voted with Republicans to reopen the government. All Democrats will get another chance to vote to reopen the government later today. And for the sake of the American people, I hope at least a few more Democrats will join us to pass this clean, nonpartisan CR and let the Senate get back to work. Mr. President, I move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar number 459.
Questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
Mr.
Clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, the judiciary, Jennifer Lee Mascott of Delaware, to be United States Circuit Judge for the Third Circuit.
Mr. President, I send a cloture motion to the desk.
Clerk will report.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Jennifer Lee Mascott of Delaware to be United States Circuit Judge for the Third Circuit, signed by 17 senators as follows.
Mr. President, I ask consent the reading of the names be waived,
Without objection.
and I moved to proceed to legislative session.
Questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion's agreed to.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I suggest the absence of quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks.
unanimous consent, the quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, today is the sixth day of Donald Trump's government shutdown. Senate Democrats returned to Washington ready to negotiate. We're ready to work with Republicans to reopen the government and end the health care crisis that faces tens of millions of Americans. But it takes two sides to have a negotiation. We need the Senate Republicans and the House Republicans and the President to come to the table. And meanwhile, Donald Trump and Speaker Johnson seem to be on another planet. Instead of trying to solve this shutdown crisis, Donald Trump spent the weekend golfing and posting memes and deep fakes on the internet. He seems to think this shutdown is some big joke. He's wrong. People will lose their paychecks. Seniors will see Social Security support services slow down. There will be chaos for travelers. This shutdown is all on Donald Trump's shoulders, and Americans agree, according to the polls. Poll after poll after poll, from CBS to the Washington Post to Marist to Morning Consult and many others, consistently show that the public sees the president as most responsible for the shutdown. He's in charge. His party holds majorities across the government. So Americans naturally and correctly believe the burden is on him to fix this mess. Speaker Johnson, meanwhile, has canceled yet another week of session for the House. Why? Because the Speaker knows House Republicans are bitterly divided on health care. He knows a large chunk of his conference doesn't want to fix people's premiums at all. The right-wing MAGA folks. Meanwhile, some of his less extreme members feel a necessity to fix this mess. The Speaker knows these divisions in his conference are serious and deep. So what does the Speaker do with these divisions in his conference, almost irreconcilable? He ducks. He chooses the politically expedient way out. He keeps the Congress out of session for weeks at a time, passes to the Senate a partisan bill with no Democratic input. That's not leadership. That's derelict. Even today, the Speaker said that we can deal with the ACA crisis sometime later. He said, wait, kick the can down the road, to postpone any negotiation until the very last minute. Speaker Johnson, I ask him the question, why the wait? Why not solve this crisis now? If you're not ready to solve it now, how do we know you're going to solve it 45 days from now? When you won't even do it now, and the same reasons that hold you back now will exist then. Insurers are waiting around to set rates for next year. They're doing it right now, not 3 months from now. Delay has always been Speaker Johnson's MO. Speaker Johnson has survived by kicking the can down the road on every major issue under his speakership, promising everyone that the thing they wanted is just around the corner. He did it repeatedly with the Freedom Caucus, for instance. And he's doing the same thing now with health care. If Speaker Johnson is serious about lowering costs and protecting the health care of the American people, why wait? Most of America, when Johnson says later, they know he means never. Democrats want to deal with the health care problem now. A recent poll by KFF shows that 80% of Americans want to extend the ACA tax credits, including 60% of MAGA Republicans. That's where the people are. A CBS poll also found that 75% of Americans don't think the administration is focused enough on lowering costs. Well, lowering health care premiums would be one of the very best ways to lower costs, because those costs are going through the roof. Many estimates show the average American would pay $1,000 more for health care. Listen to this. If you're a couple, 55-year-old couple who makes $80,000 a year, your premiums could go up $25,000 a year. How is anyone going to deal with that issue? Why is Johnson waiting? But yet again, Speaker Johnson and MAGA Republicans continue to lie and change the subject. Donald Trump does the same thing. The Speaker today once again lied that Democrats' proposal would provide health care benefits to undocumented immigrants. He even cited a page number and section within our proposal he says supposedly proves the point. Of course our proposal doesn't say that. As the Sunday show talk commentators Johnson sent down with this weekend pointed out, and he had no real rebuttal. Saying that Democrats' proposal provides health insurance to undocumented immigrants is plain and simple, a blatant lie. It was a lie yesterday, it's a lie today, it'll be a lie tomorrow. Nothing in our proposal, not even the page the Speaker keeps citing as changes that, as fact checkers have repeatedly pointed out, independent fact checkers, not Democrats, not Republicans, just experts. Undocumented immigrants are not eligible for Medicaid, Medicare, or ACA credits under current law or under the Democratic continuing resolution proposal. It's been the law for decades. Instead, here's what Democrats want to do. We want to reverse the devastating cuts to American health care that Republicans passed in their big, ugly bill. We want to extend the ACA tax credits that lower costs for eligible Americans. These are the plain facts. But Speaker Johnson and Republicans don't want to deal with the facts. They don't want to talk about health care because they know the American people are appalled by their health care policies. So instead, they lie, change the subject. And Speaker Johnson and the House Republicans would rather duck out of town than come into session and do their jobs. You know, when Leader Jeffries and I met with the President, he, of all people, seemed at least to somewhat appreciate the immense harm of letting these ACA credits expire. Of course, we had to walk the President through it first because it seemed he had no clue of the crisis before our meeting. But frankly, what should happen now is this. The President should lean on Speaker Johnson to relent on his extreme refusal to negotiate. It's not a sustainable position for the Speaker to literally shut the entire House down and not do anything to solve this crisis. Again, why wait? Democrats are ready to solve this now. We urge Donald Trump to get Speaker Johnson and our Republican colleagues to come to the table with Senator Jeffries and I, negotiate and address this problem and fix it once and for all. I yield the floor.
President.
Majority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, it's very obvious that Democrats are losing the Schumer shutdown. Even their media allies are turning against them. Here's an editorial from today's Washington Post. The headline is, "The Shutdown Conversation No One Wants." The Washington Post editorial board today wrote this, quote, "Democrats have demanded that Republicans agree to extend the COVID-era insurance subsidies without proposing any way to pay for it." They go on to say the Congressional Budget Office estimates that it would cost $350 billion over the next decade. Now, that's the Washington Post talking, not Republicans. So it's no surprise that Democrats are avoiding this conversation. Obamacare is broken, Obamacare is a failure, and now Democrats are holding the American people hostage to prop it up. The Biden bonus COVID payments are a bait and switch. Democrats created them in 2021. They did it as a temporary COVID program. They extended them temporarily to 2022. They set an end date from this year when they extended them once again. Now these same Democrats are demanding that they become permanent at a cost of $350 billion. It's unacceptable. This is a system that is riddled with waste, with fraud, abuse, and corruption. Big insurance companies are rewarded with direct payments from the federal government to the insurance companies. Hardworking taxpayers are left holding the bill. Many of these policies, there are no premiums, no deductibles, no income limit, no accountability. Even families making $500,000 a year, they still qualify for these Biden bonus COVID payments. This is reckless, permanent new spending. The American people can't afford it. The American people know it. And even the Washington Post knows it and has reported on it today. Democrats lost the election, they've lost their media allies, and now they have lost the argument. Mr. President, on a related matter, here we are, day 6 of the Schumer shutdown. Senate Democrats have now voted 4 separate times to keep our government closed. Radical Democrats are shutting down the government with an outlandish list of demands, and you've seen them, Mr. President. Included in that list is giving free health care to illegal immigrants. When the interests of Americans and illegal immigrants collide, Democrats always seek to benefit the latter at the expense of the former. Think back to the last Democrat primary for president back in June of 2019 when they were having a big debate on live television. There were so many candidates that they actually had to do it 2 separate nights to get them all on the stage. Every running candidate for president was asked in that one debate if their platform would give free health care to illegal immigrants. Every single Democrat candidate on the debate stage that night raised their hand and said yes. Every one of them promised to give free health care to illegal immigrants. Senator Bernie Sanders was on the stage that night. He raised his hand. Senator Kristen Gillibrand of New York was on the stage that night. She raised her hand. Yes, free health care to illegal immigrants. Those are current members of the United States Senate who voted to shut the government down. They voted 4 times in the last 6 days. And it's more than talk. When Democrats get power, it's exactly what they're going to do. Look at California. In 2024, Governor Gavin Newsom expanded state-sponsored health care to illegal immigrants. He actually bragged about it. So there's no hiding from this. 1 year later, the Los Angeles Times reported that by doing this, costs had tripled. There was a headline dated March 13th of this year. It says, "Cost of undocumented health care in California is billions over estimates." They go on to say, pressuring Democrats to consider cuts. Instead of $3 billion a year, in the California health care system costs taxpayers $9.5 billion by providing health care to illegal immigrants. California financed its health care for illegal immigrants through a money laundering scheme aimed at the federal government. They used it to increase the state's Medicaid payments from the federal government directly to the state of California. This is money vacuumed away from hardworking Americans and from the vulnerable people in this country, our friends and neighbors who need Medicaid the most. What did California do with it? They used it for illegal immigrants, not for U.S. citizens. President Joe Biden and the Democrats, they went even further. Apparently they weren't liberal enough in doing that. Joe Biden created multiple illegal parole programs when he was president. It was a blatant attempt at amnesty by the sleight of hand. Parole is supposed to be rare, it's supposed to be temporary, and it's supposed to be case by case. And Mr. President, I'm talking about the flood of illegal immigrants that have come into this country across our southern border. People saw them on television. Joe Biden abused presidential parole authority and turned our law on its head. Democrats made non-citizens who were paroled eligible for free health care. Look no further than the illegal immigrant who murdered 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley in Georgia. He crossed the border illegally in 2022. The Biden administration released him into our country instead of removing him. The Biden administration paroled him for what they claimed were, quote, urgent humanitarian reasons of significant public benefit. And then he murdered a nursing student. Joe Biden made Laken Riley's killer eligible for taxpayer-funded health care. Democrats even promised free health care as an enticement to attract illegal immigrants to our southern border. It was a magnet. Well, Democrats have now shut down the government. Why? To defend a system where Laken Riley's killer can get taxpayer-funded free health care. That's who they are. That's their beliefs. That's their commitment, not to the American people, but to the illegal immigrants. Well, Republicans closed the loophole, Mr. President. Our working families' tax cuts put in place strong eligibility verification requirements. So that person can't qualify anymore, or anyone like them. It also ended the gimmicks that allowed California to fund health care for illegal immigrants through higher federal Medicaid payments, the way they siphon money from the federal government into California to pay for illegal immigrants. Meanwhile, what we've seen is President Trump and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem rightfully terminated all of these Joe Biden categorical parole programs. He should have never let him in the first place. Now we have terminated him. And the Supreme Court was called into play in an action here. The Supreme Court upheld this decision by the Trump administration after several rounds of left-wing lawfare. President Trump is securing our border. He's putting American citizens first, not illegal immigrants. That's the difference between our parties. Democrats want to undo all of that. That's why they're holding the nation hostage by shutting down the government. That's what this fight is all about. Let's be clear. By shutting down the government, Democrats are putting illegal immigrants ahead of American citizens, ahead of our veterans, ahead of our military, ahead of our seniors, ahead of our children. It is reckless, it's radical, and it is wrong. It's time for it to end. So today, Mr. President, the Senate's going to vote for a fifth time on our bipartisan continuing resolution, and we want to reopen government. It passed the House with bipartisan support. The Senate this evening will have a simple choice once again. Vote to reopen the government and put America first and Americans first, or vote with Senator Schumer to put illegal immigrants ahead of the American people. Voting with Chuck Schumer tonight will keep the government closed. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsop-Brooks.